United Council of India's Children's Safety Conference this morning, or Child Safety Conference. And you, Mridula, have set the scene for today's discussion. I'm going to briefly give an overview of the South African situation, and then I want to hone in on parental responsibility and parental accountability. So I would like to start with, just one second, I see that, yes, sorry, just give me, oh, it's going too far forward. Just sorry, I'm trying to get this. Let me continue because the machine is now halting. I will continue. The South African Children's Act 35 of 2005 gives effect to a number of clauses contained with regard to children and child safety in South Africa. The first is, as contained in the Constitution of South Africa, which is the overarching law of the country, it gives effect to the rights of the children. Number one is to set out principles relating to the care and protection of children. Number two, it defines parental roles and responsibilities as well as parental rights. It makes provision regarding children's courts and what should happen when children's courts are involved in the care and protection of children. And then to provide for the issuing of contribution orders, adoption of children, and inter-country adoption, among others. It also gives effect to the Hague Convention on inter-country adoption and prohibits child abduction and gives effect to the Hague Convention on the international child abduction. Now, that for us is extremely important given some of the circumstances, not only in South Africa, but globally with regard to child abduction. It also provides for surrogate motherhood and creates offenses relating to children and provides for matters connected therewith. Now, Chapter 3 of the Children's Act 35 of 2005 provides for parental accountability and responsibility. This is contained in sections 18 to 35. I'm going to start, see? Okay, there we go. I've just spoken to that. Now I want to look at a holistic approach to child safety and how it is that we are supposed to engage each other with regard to child safety. Firstly, we look at the relationship between state and society. Now, within South Africa, we have a number of state organs and state departments that are primarily responsible for children and child safety. The first is the Department of Health, and the first 1,000 days of a child's life. All of the processes that should be put in place to ensure that a child enjoys the best possible health care during those first 1,000 days and beyond. Then we have the Department of Education that's primarily responsible for education, but also provides other aspects of education and child safety. You've got the Department of Social Development, that is your social workers and other officials responsible for child safety. Here within South Africa, we also have the Department of Community Safety, the South African Police Services, under which resorts the Child Protection Unit, the Child Protection Service. When we talk about a healthy relationship between state and society, we also talk about the role of faith-based organizations, which brings me to the second aspect, the role of religion and culture. How do faith-based organizations, the church, the mosque, the temple, the synagogue, and other religious organs promote the safety of children? Related to this is also the issue of non-governmental organizations, community organizations, and other civic organizations. Parental accountability, however, is tantamount to all of these organs working with each other to ensure a holistic accountability for the child, its safety, and its well-being in this world. Now, within South Africa and within the Department of Education, we do have a directorate or a sub-directorate within the Directorate of Educational Management and Governance, which is that of safe schools. This directorate is not only responsible for things like alarms, fences, and ensuring that infrastructure is safe, but also provides programs and interventions for child safety, things like truancy officers, field workers, etc., who visit homes to ensure that our children are at school. We have processes in place for that. I also want to focus on school governance and the responsible of the governors of a school as they are mandated within the South African Schools Act to be responsible for the code of conduct of learners, code of conduct of teachers, as well as through their policies, child safety within the schools. The Representative Council of Learners work within the school governance structure to ensure that learner voice is heard and that there is learner accountability for their own discipline and safety as well. So I've spoken to that now with regard to the Western Cape Education Department. I want to focus on the fourth square or PowerPoint there, and that is the role of child rights monitors. Within South Africa, we have in every province what we call a children's commissioner appointed by the provincial parliamentary division in that province. We have 9 provinces. And that children's commissioner, her role, and in the Western Cape, it is Ms. Christina Nomdu, her role is to oversee the state organs and to monitor how we take care of children's rights. She also has within schools, and often from the Representative Council of Learners, child rights monitors. These children also oversee the safety of children within schools. Let me talk now to the issue of pandemic pregnancy and parenting, and particularly the South African scenario. Now, all of us know that COVID and lockdown have revealed a number of inequalities in our social system, as well as a number of gaps. We know that teenage pregnancy has always been a problem in all countries all over the world. However, the pandemic very clearly and very harshly brought this to the fore. I've put down here some of the statistics from studies conducted within South Africa just after, or rather, during the pandemic. The rate of pregnancy among school learners in South Africa remains unacceptably high, with more than 36,000 babies delivered to girls aged 10 to 19 in the first quarter of 2021. I'd like us to digest that. 36,000 babies to girls aged 10 to 19. Babies having babies. Little girls who really do not know themselves how to play in this teenage environment, suddenly thrust into motherhood. Nearly 130,000 babies were delivered to girls aged 10 to 19 in South African public health facilities in 2019 alone. Now, I'm just looking in the statistics of one province, which starkly showed us, the reality of what the girl child is dealing with. In Gauteng, 10-year-olds are among the 23,226 girls who fell pregnant in Gauteng between April 2020 and March 2021. 934 girls between 10 and 14 had babies. 19,000 babies were delivered by girls between 15 and 19, and 13,000 girls between 10 and 19 chose to terminate their pregnancies. Now, I've put this down so that we can see that one of our gravest problems is the girl child and pregnancy. And when I say the girl child and pregnancy, I know too that the boy child is also at risk. And we need to talk to that as well. So we know that pregnancy and socioeconomics are tied together. Usually children from poor neighborhoods get pregnant because of a lack of parenting, because of a lack of education, because of a lack of the community to be able to, the expression I like to use is hold the child. We know too that dropout rates are among the highest in poor neighborhoods, contributing to risk behavior and a lack of contraception. Substance abuse and crime lead to gang involvement, and the gang is seen as an easy outlet, especially here in the Western Cape. The gang is seen as an outlet for boredom, as well as an opportunity to make money and literally survive. The Cape Flats is infamous for gang culture and gang practices. We know too that responsible parenting is poor because we've got children having children. And if they are not educated in the care and support of children, they themselves cannot do this. I've put down the issue of sugar daddies. Now, I don't know if you know this expression, but sugar daddies are older men who prey on young girls, provide them with jewelry, provide them with money, provide them with clothing, you know, smart shoes, brand name tackies, etc., in exchange for sex. Many girls, especially in the environment that I've been involved in whilst being a school principal, pride themselves on having a much older man, a sugar daddy, to take care of them. This brings me to the core of what I want to say: parenting, culture, religion, and values. The silence of the violence. My experiential knowledge, as well as my research, has indicated that as long as the parent abdicates his or her responsibility for child rights, child safety, and child protection, organs of the state may try. However, we know that the Department of Social Development cannot deal with all of the cases on its hands. Some cases get thrown out of court because of lack of evidence. Some instances, the paperwork is lost, and it may take years before a rape case is brought to the forefront. So when I speak to the silence of violence, I want to just quickly refer to a few case studies. The one is religion and culture and the practice of ukutwala here in South Africa. This practice is predominant all over the world. In India, it may be called something else. I know in the Honduras at the moment, in the Honduras, we've got girls as young as 12 being mothers because they are victims of rape, and the morning after pill is not available for those girls. So not only do they suffer the rape and its, you know, all of the issues that come with it, but they also then become further victims because they have to carry the babies of their rapists. They have to give birth to these babies, and they have to live with these babies, a constant reminder of the rape. South Africa's ukutwala means that young girls are married off to much older men. I had a situation where a 13-year-old girl was married off to a man who was in his 80s. and he was raping her every night. And I presented at a conference on the matter, and an indigenous man stood up and told me that I had no right to speak to the issue of Ukutwala because I do not know the culture and I don't understand indigenous culture. My response to him was, you're absolutely right. I do not know your culture. I do not know your indigenous culture. But what I do know is that this goes against the Constitution and it goes against the rights of the girl child. So in terms of policy, in terms of reality, I do know what I'm talking about. We often also find that in many homes, parents are dependent on other richer relatives to provide for them. And so the mother or the father would turn a blind eye to an uncle who lives in the home and rapes the daughter because they are dependent on the uncle for income. Or it could be a more powerful relative who they are afraid of. Now, again, from personal experience, when I called a mother in to tell her that her daughter was being repeatedly raped by the stepfather and that we as a school needed to take action, the mother's response was she was going to do nothing about it at the moment because the stepfather was busy with home improvements. They were extending their home and she was financially dependent on him, and therefore she could not do anything at the moment. So I ask you, how do we live with ourselves as parents? How do we justify the care of our children when we put money above our children and their well-being? Many parents also suppress the truth or refuse to accept the truth, and the health implications can be horrific. Here too, I had to intervene together with the Department of Social Development and the Department of Health to make sure that a young lady was taken to the district surgeon because she was smelling of urine at the school and nobody wanted to play with her. And lo and behold, when we took her to the district surgeon, it was discovered that her sexual, organs, her area was completely destroyed. This girl had to end up having a hysterectomy at age 13. The mother's words throughout the engagement was, she's telling a lie, she's telling a lie, it's not happening. Eventually, the mother said, no, the daughter is stealing her boyfriend. It's the daughter's fault. Recently, in KwaZulu-Natal, a province on the eastern border of South Africa, and one to which many Indian indentured laborers arrived in 1860 and beyond, a father who was living with his mother invited his children to come over for a visit. The children lived with their mother. On the day that the children went to visit, the father gave the younger boy, who was about 5 years old, his cell phone and told him to go into another room and he could play with the cell phone. The father himself then proceeded to rape the daughter. Not only do we live in a sick society, but we cannot trust parents to be accountable and responsible for their children. We find that cases like this often land up in the courts, but take far too long to finalize, during which time the trauma that the child has suffered is compounded. In this case, the child cannot go to that area anymore. She can't play with other children in the area because everybody within that neighborhood found out about what happened. Now, this young girl has to live with the stigma of having been raped by her own father. We also have predator educators at our schools. I often need to remind educators that should they engage in any sexual molestation, grooming, sexual activity, that they will be responsible for statutory rape in some cases, and in other cases, be struck off the South African Council for Educators, the professional body, because they have been engaging in nefarious activities with children. I sometimes myself become so embarrassed when I have to read SMS messages between a teacher and a younger child. And let me just remind us that it is not only the male teacher who's a predator. We also have a number of female educators who engage in this kind of unacceptable, nefarious behavior, when in fact they should be in loco parentis taking care of children. We also have people in power. To our shock and dismay, recently in the Western Cape government, the ex-minister for social development has now been axed because he, primarily together with 4 other people in his office, were responsible for grooming young women, for sexual molestation, for rape, for drugging them, and for making sure that these girls, these interns in their offices, became their pawns and their victims because the girls were in need of employment. The case has not yet gone to the criminal court. However, from the evidence provided thus far by the independent investigator, it is quite clear that the man should have no social standing, let alone having been the Minister for Social Development. I'm saying again, it has not gone to court yet. However, the evidence is available for all to see. It is now up to the victims to take the matter to the criminal court. So what then do we do when the situation is so bleak? We need to build social cohesion, pardon me, and child resilience. And how do we do this? We do this through parental education programs, through supporting our parents, both at the level of the school, within faith-based organizations, within NGOs, within community organizations, giving parents tools on how to parent. For example, when I talk to parents, I'm always saying, don't give your child a cell phone to play with. Give your child your time. Don't take your child to a restaurant and think of that as love. Take your child for a walk and talk to your child. Secondly, the village raises the child. The village means that everybody takes responsibility for the child. It is a case of your child is my child. Today we find that parents don't want other people, in inverted commas, meddling or interfering. But sometimes the eyes and ears of the community can tell you something that you are missing. And whilst you're at work, other people can take care of your children. We must entrench values programs within the school and not make values programs an add-on to other subjects in the curriculum. Values programs must be standalone programs. Citizenship training should be started at the level of the primary school. And here too, civics and civic, education must be a standalone subject to which time is given. And when time is given to programs such as values program and citizenship and civic education, they mustn't be seen as homework periods in the classroom, because then we've wasted our time. We must teach children entrepreneurship skills. We must teach them to become self-sufficient. We must teach them from an early age that they have skills that can be nurtured and skills that can take them into the market economy, and therefore they don't need to rely on the gangs and sugar daddies for money. Growth mindset programs are important, and this is that you are not the community you come from, you're not your past, you're not a victim, but that you can grow your mind to be confident, to be pursuing of higher aims and ideals, and that you can dare to dream beyond your own reality. It is extremely important too that coaching and mentorship is provided to children from a very young age, and that we support our learners in programs that will enhance their self-confidence and self-worth. I've put down the next as extremely important because we have a number of programs for the girl child and supporting the girl child, yet there are few programs supporting boys and their self-worth. Now, I say this because we do not want to ignore the boy child. He engages in risk behavior, unprotected sex. The girl is the one who ends up with a baby. She is stopped from going to school. He can continue his education. However, if he is educated in terms of his self-worth and we build self-confidence in the boy and we give him tools for dealing with the transition period from pre-teen to pre-adult, etc., the boy child will feel a sense of self-worth, and therefore he will not engage in activities where he needs to prove himself to other boys through crime, drugs, gangsterism, etc. My catchphrase, which is at the end of every one of my emails, it is my byline, and it is the maxim by which I live, is that of all the gifts we give our children, words must be the most carefully wrapped. It is our words and the way we speak to our children and the way we engage with children that will decide the kind of learner or the kind of citizen or the kind of adult that we send into the world. I thank you for this opportunity. Let me wish all of the other speakers everything of the very best for today and for the rest of the conference. And I look forward to further engagements with you. Nkosi, Danki, Mirdula, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was very, very helpful for us, and we loved your presentation. And we hope this would bring some kind of change, and this summit would bring some kind of change. Thank you so much, ma'am. So now we move on to our next speaker, Damia Holt, an environmental teacher and educator, qualified lifeline childline counselor, and a surf instructor, rock climbing, upselling mountain guide, and now teaching children online as well as tutoring and facilitating at King David Victor Park. He also runs a small project under the name Origami Zoo that collaborates with NPOs. After years of being in the position of caregiver and support, not only to much younger siblings, but within countless children care positions and roles professionally. A fundamental truth to share here would be that childcare is not so much about childcare as much as it is in fact about parent care and courageous self-care. That was a wonderful quote, sir. Over to you, and we are looking forward for your speech now. Mr. Damien Holt.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm just going to bring up what I'd like to speak about. My name is Damien Holt. I've been working in sustainable development with children and children's education for the past 10 to 15 years. I'm humbled by the opportunity to speak amongst such interesting and notable people from all over the world, and so grateful for the efforts of all of those that have made this possible. Thank you. It is a great privilege to advocate for children, their safety, and their future. A common thread for me in my many years of working with children has been what powerful teachers children are. I have always been humbled by the child's perspective and deeply moved and intrigued by their experience, their curiosity, and their ability to teach by simply being. Children see, feel, and absorb all the detail, all the habits, the patterns, the wrist flicks, the sarcasm, the underhanded comments, and begin to try them out themselves. Adults may wish to be or feel unreadable, very clever, inaccessible to children, and complicated a lot of the time. But if there is one thing I know, it is that children are cleverer. You cannot hide your insecurities, your complex inner towers from a child. They will find them and knock them down with a giggle. My first true introduction to spending time with children and the dream that would later emerge was when I was 12 and my first brother was born. I remember sitting with him in the garden. I remember his awe for the smallest sounds and movements, the magic that every detail of the world held for him. This was my first insight into the power of the child's perspective, and it has profoundly influenced my own view on the world as an adult today. I wrote a few years ago that being a good caregiver, parent, or teacher is not a predefined commitment to your children. It is, in fact, and almost to the contrary, primarily and most fundamentally a leap of faith into the abyss of yourself. The opportunity to courageously push past our own conditioning and sit with our own inner child. This is where the real change happens. If, and this is no easy task, we can do this with the children in our lives, we can begin to realize the power that children truly hold and reflect for us. We are reminded of the wisdom that lies within us all, untainted by our own biases, experience, or fear-based beliefs. Essentially, we have a choice. We can let our children envelop us with wonder, joy, humility, risking most everything that we have constructed as adults to seem or feel accepted. And we can engage, terrified, excited, and completely vulnerable in a love affair with the unknown. Or we can take our children by the hand, kicking and screaming into our own internal dialogue of doubt and fear. Put more simply, the only way to create an education system that is child-led and child-focused, we have to take the step towards simple, playful thinking. To rid ourselves of the hierarchy that says art and play comes last, and to understand that in order for true, long-lasting learning to take place for all of us, joy, play, and the journey inward must be prioritized. Many successful people in business will tell you about white space, its fundamentals, necessity in innovation, vision, productivity, and resilience in the workplace. It is childlike to give yourself time in nature, time to stop and think without noise and stress. If we are asking adults to give themselves time to breathe, flow, and be creative as a way to innovate, let's remember not to take that time away from the experts who taught us how to do it, our younger generations, children. It is imperative now more than ever that we give time and energy to encourage and provide the infrastructure for this white space for children who inherently live there, and for us to go there with them. This way of thinking has brought me to the ethics and principles of permaculture. Permaculture, for those of you who do not know, is a way of caring for the earth with the understanding that humans are not the great enemy, that we can care for this planet and each other practicing these three ethics. They are earth care, people care, and fair share. A beautiful quote from Richard Louv, author of Vitamin N, The Nature Principle, and The Last Child in the Woods, says, earth care, people care, and fair share can serve as principles for all seasons and all professions. If incorporated into the lives of enough children and the lives of the adults who care for them, this philosophy can truly change the world. Permaculture and my incredible partner's love for children and nature has sparked in me a new wonder for what is possible in our communities and with our children. I have always greatly encouraged the connection between children and nature, but I have realized even more so now how much of a no-brainer it is that children spend time outside, growing their own food, playing in the mud, and exploring without adults controlling each minute of their free time. This is where the power of change lies, and the power of our ability to change the future. In my most humble and honest experience, the depths of our effectiveness and ability as teachers, parents, and adults in the world is dependent and directly reflected by how truly open we are to learning. So I encourage all of you, wherever you can, to jump in, to remain present, to get down on a knee next to a child, to look and listen to what children are showing you. Because there is a different kind of intelligence there. One that is deep below our skin, a wisdom deep in our bones that children call forth. A wonder, a deep intelligence that we need to know how to create better change in the world. Get down to that place where the child sees the world and in nature, in the garden. I would like to speak a little bit about the term and philosophy progressive education. It's being flung around a lot, and not everyone knows exactly what it means or what it entails. I had to learn this for myself, and I'm still learning because it's a process. It's a very large concept that will no doubt continue to grow and expand. So what is progressive education? John Dewey, a philosopher, said, children need to be activating their imagination through their curiosity, their voice, and through democratic processes. There are more and more emerging pedagogies and approaches at the forefront of progressive education. And no pedagogy touches more on this than that of Reggio Emilia. Reggio Emilia is a tiny village in Italy. The long history of Reggio Emilia has its first traces in the mid-19th century and unfolds down the years in a series of significant moments. This long timeline leading to present day has brought Reggio Emilia and the Reggio Emilia approach into contact with more than 145 countries and territories around the world. As I say, it's fantastic that there are so many pedagogies and progressive education approaches emerging, and this is very promising. So the Reggio Emilia approach is an educational philosophy based on the image of a child with strong potentialities for development and a subject with rights, who learns through the 100 languages belonging to all human beings and grows in relations to others. Having spent some time myself practicing Reggio Emilia pedagogy at Small World, a Reggio Emilia inspired school here in Johannesburg, South Africa, I could see the incredible power of a collaborative and child-led approach, not only to foundation education, but education as a whole, and the great need for Reggio Emilia pedagogies and others like it has so much to offer to the subject. Reggio Emilia has so much to offer to the subject of children's learning, their safety, and their future for all of us. Reggio Emilia speaks about these 100 languages. I quote, "These languages, the 100 languages of children, are symbolic and are open to the endless potentials of children. They believe in the potential of a child's ability to wonder. It is the belief that there are multiple ways of seeing and multiple ways of being. It is time for us to take responsibility in our roles as teachers, parents, and adults, and to courageously take the leap in collaboration with children towards a future of positive and sustainable change." I encourage you to please look up the Reggio Emilia approach and to do more art and spend more time in the garden and spend time viewing things through the child's perspective, because I really believe this is how we will create the change that we're looking for. So thank you so much for your time. It was short and sweet, but I'm really, grateful to have been able to speak to you all, and looking forward to hearing from everyone, all the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very fun to hear too. And we actually loved your ideas and how to spend time, and also we will definitely try the few of your ideas. Now moving on to our next speaker is Debbie Cockrell. She joined a Slower Center of Excellence, that is SCE, a non-profit organization in 2014 to assist her mother, Lorraine, the founder of the organization, and as she transitioned from her career in hospitality to 15 years, and what was meant to be a 6 months, like find herself and a new career, decision has blossomed into 8 years and finding her way towards sustainability in these challenging times for the organization. Now, before she was working in SCE, she worked in several high-end hotels and restaurants in a food and beverage management capacity, the hotel industry, including the Saxon Boutique Hotel and Santon Sun with the Sog Sun Group. And this career path took her into many different countries. So during this 8-year career transition, she has been fortunate to study several areas with regards to early childhood development, that is ECD, and community development, that is ABSED. Most recently, she has completed studies as a toy librarian through the Cortland's Ignite program. So through the interaction with children aged 2 to 16 years old, these years, she has certainly sparked her advocacy voice for the right of children to play, to quality education, access to learning materials in various areas for the sustainable future, including digital literacy. So this ideally to be achieved in a holistic way for full potential to be reached. As the operations manager of a small NPO, she has been exposed to multiple skills ranging from training and development to social media and administration. So it has given her a deepened understanding of the community through the programs they offer and the challenges they face for both the adults and the children on the ground in the urban settings. This is a wonderful experience you have got, ma'am, and we are looking forward to your speech. Over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for that introduction, Mritula. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you so much, really, for the the opportunity to speak at the summit and really just to engage around the importance of children in our society, and certainly to be amongst people who recognize the importance of education, the importance of children's safety, and then the multiple ways that we can achieve this through collaboration, through interaction as well. I'd like to share my presentation. Let me just get myself organized. If you can give me a moment, please. Ritula, I don't know if you guys need to activate my screen share, or do I need to activate it?
You have already given the permission, ma'am. You can actually do it by yourself.
Okay, I'm just not finding under the share screen. I'm not finding the opportunity to share mine. It's, yeah.
You are a co-host.
Wait a couple of minutes.
Okay, let's try that one.
Are you able to do it now?
I'm trying to get in. Is anyone seeing anything on your end?
No, ma'am, we cannot see your presentation.
JB,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, Kabishni?
You've pressed share screen, hey?
Correct.
Just wait a couple of minutes. It does take a little bit of time. And then it will come, the red little rectangle will say present. Then you press that. You're not seeing that yet?
No, it's only giving me the option that only the host can share.
Oh.
You
So
are
Myrtle, you have to share.
Yes, ma'am, but you are a host. You can.
Oh, I see. I see. Let's see that one. My apologies, everyone, for the delay there.
Hello.
All right. Mritula, I don't want to lose too much time, so I think I'm just going to talk to the presentation that I have, if that's okay.
Yes, that's.
I don't know if you guys are by. I have sent you the presentation. If you can, during the course of the conversation, share it on your end. I'd appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sure. I'll just try.
All right. Okay. So as mentioned, I joined my mom about 8 years ago after a career in hospitality, and I was really looking for an opportunity to give back, an opportunity to find a little bit more purpose in my life in terms of my career and what I was doing.
Sorry to interrupt. I just got your presentation. I'll present it now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's great. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Ritula. All right. So Silver Center of Excellence, as mentioned, was started by my mom, Lorraine, and her was her life had really led to a lot of work with children in her personal capacity. And as she reached the end of her career, she decided that she wanted to do a little bit more to give back. And so 17 years ago, she started a little Sunday school program. And that then developed into an after school care. And that then took on the form of a toy library around 2013. What we have found over the years of working and establishing the toy library is that many people don't know what a toy library is. So I've decided to take the approach today just to really share with everyone what a toy library is, but most importantly, the power of play and the importance of play in engaging with children for multiple activities. So what we do as an organization is one of the areas that we focus on is providing educational support programs to children and caregivers in our community using play-based methods. Making sure that children have access to toys. This is very, very important when we look at the socioeconomic challenges in our country, in our community, and most certainly in the world at large. So ensuring that children actually can access toys when they are from impoverished or disadvantaged communities. And then ensuring that through working with caregivers, principals, schools, that we provide a more cost-effective mechanism. Toys tend to be very expensive in South Africa, and so that tends to create quite a gap for those who have access versus those who don't. So the toy libraries are able to provide us a little solution in terms of more cost-effective methods in terms of accessing toys. And then certainly, without a doubt, what toy libraries do is they create safe spaces for children. We find in very socioeconomically challenged environments, where there are parks, the parks are often taken over by gangsters or drug addicts or all kinds of other misfits, society misfits. And so toy libraries really provide an opportunity for a safe space for a child to play with access to resources, which are often not available in the home as well. All right, next one. So there are many, many different types of play. I've just decided to highlight a few of them today. We often hear of play in our country. I'm not too sure how it is in many other countries, but there's a sort of historical background of play being children go and play outside, children go and play in front of the TV, children go and play with each other, but there's very often not an understanding of the types of play that can be engaged in terms of adults interacting with children. So social board games are one of them. This is a fantastic tool for adults, caregivers, parents, community members to interact with children. Fantasy play, the picture up at the top right of the slide is one of our creches that borrowed a whole bunch of fantasy play outfits, and they were doing a little career day with the foundation phase children, where they could dress up and pretend for a few moments that they were those actual career spaces. Creative play, I'm very happy the speaker Damien's touched on this, very, very important for children. Arts and crafts, anything around working with the hands and different kinds of art materials, whether it be paper or crayons or paint or mud. Those are all forms of creative play to engage children, and very much with upcycling methodologies as well. And then cognitive stimulation play is obviously linked into the brain's development. So this is bringing in concepts of numeracy, mathematical skills, language development, those type of things that are actually stimulating for the brain. Thank you. Why do we choose play? Well, the most important reason is that play is actually the language in which children learn. I absolutely love this concept and was really excited when I joined Slovo Center of Excellence to really understand what that meant. I don't have any children of my own, and I was a little bit nervous starting to work with children when I started as a volunteer. And I thought to myself, what is this plays the language of children all about? And I started to recognize that irrespective of demographic, irrespective of language barriers, irrespective of demographic areas in terms of social standings, children interact through the language of play with each other and with the world that they live in. Play is how they communicate about their environment. So whatever they might find happening in their homes, in their school, they're actually able to showcase through the language of play. And then most certainly what we see linked into the summit topic today is that play is a huge, huge tool that can be used for healing based on trauma or traumatic situations. So some of the affiliate bodies that we belong to, one of them is called CLASA, which stands for Toy Library Association of South Africa. This is a more recently established NPO in South Africa and links into ITLA, which is the International Toy Library Association. I just wanted to share some of these bodies with the audience to showcase that there are organizations that are trying to formalize toy libraries, that are trying to ensure that there's advocacy around children's right to play, which definitely falls into the UN's children's rights portfolio. And then one of the highlight days on our calendars under both of these organizations as toy libraries is an annual day celebrated every year on the 28th of May, and that is called World Play Day. And it's usually themed every year. You can log onto the website, you can do a Google search, and you can find a way to interact in any organization that is working with children, any school that is working with children. It really is a wonderful day to participate and focus on the importance of play. All right, and then a couple of points I'd like to highlight on the next slide, on this one that we're looking at, is really the link between toy libraries and sustainability. I was very happy again to hear Damien touching in on the gardening, the food element side. I think this is such a critical stage in our global consciousness of how we can really start looking at what are the things, what are the skills that need to be activated for young children in order to survive and to thrive in the future. And sustainability as a whole is really where this link starts to play itself out. So certainly what we are aiming to achieve through toy libraries, through play-based learning, is a healthy, well-rounded child. And this is one of every single nation's greatest assets for their own future. Education is a key component. It cannot be done without education, whether we're looking at the child's education or the parent's education. Many parents don't know how to interact with their children. Toy libraries offer the opportunity to host workshops where these type of skills can be engaged. Safe spaces for children, as we've touched on, which are very, very important for children to be able to thrive in their society. So the more toy libraries we have in communities, the more children have a space to go where they can access the resources they need in terms of that holistic development. Sustainability from a recycling perspective, we are able to teach and share opportunities on how to make toys from upcycled materials. This is obviously one of the biggest challenges faced with socioeconomically challenged communities, where there is not money for toys, there is not a sense of access, but there's certainly a movement towards upcycling. And there are many ideas that you can find through Pinterest, through Google search. There are organizations that focus specifically on these kind of skills. And it's one of the things we do at Slovo Center of Excellence, through hosting workshops, through having theme areas where we show our principals, our children, how you can make toys out of waste materials to avoid them into landfill. And then what toy libraries certainly offer, if we look at our job creation and unemployment rates in South Africa, is an opportunity for educating young adults into a career pathway into early childhood development through play facilitation skills. Safe communities and are healthy for children's well-being. I think we all have a very, very broad understanding of the challenges that we face when it comes to children's safety, from human trafficking to safety within the home in terms of rape, molestation, all the things that were mentioned earlier by Mrs. Govender. And one of the things that the toy libraries certainly do is they lend themselves into creating a space where children can feel safe. And in feeling safe, they can thrive in their development as into young adult. So we have a program that we term all of our games and activities called EduFun. And EduFun includes a selection of things, as we mentioned, in the holistic perspective, with everything from arts and crafts to computer literacy skills, which are vital for the next generation as well. Not too much screen time, but certainly a knowledge of how to operate on computers and how to utilize apps for the educational journey going forward. Cognitive development activities, puzzles, Lego, all sorts of opportunities where games and activities can be utilized to stimulate the brain and to encourage learning through play. In terms of your audience at YUCI, I think what I'm understanding is that you have a broad volunteer base. So this is also just to encourage some of your volunteers that may be watching this to really look at opportunities to engage in play with children. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't need to be an academic. You can be a person who's just got a genuine care for children and recognizing the importance of allowing them to feel safe. And play provides an awesome opportunity for interacting with children in this way. So the next slide really touches on how do we create safer communities? How do we find opportunities to create these safe spaces that we are referring to? Number one, absolutely collaboration is key. Collaboration with all kinds of stakeholders, but certainly between organizations. Stakeholder engagement refers obviously to many of the organizations that exist already. Mrs. Govender certainly covered those in what exists from a government perspective, the different layers that exist where spaces are available for ensuring that children are protected. How do we engage those as NPOs? How do we engage those as citizens of our countries in order to interact and ensure that they are implemented? Certainly improving access to resources. We see this as one of our major focus areas as a toy library in our community, is to make sure that there are toys that are stimulated and that can encourage learning for children. And then the role of education and advocacy certainly cannot be overemphasized by what we are doing today, talking about it, ensuring that our communities are aware that children have rights, ensuring that our communities are aware that children have a right to play. That one was quite important. So there are multiple awareness campaigns that we can all participate in. These are not exclusive to anybody. These are things that we can engage in through, once again, our schools, our nonprofit organizations, our activities as parents as well. So in South Africa, one that we are entering into this month is Human Rights Day, which is on the 21st of March. And this is really highlighting the rights of people in general, but certainly the right of children to safe spaces and the right of children to play. The National Child Protection Week, which happens once a year for, I think it's a duration of about 5 or 6 days for an entire week, where we highlight awareness around child abuse, child trafficking, once again, the importance of safe spaces within schools, within daycare centers, and participate with the other structures around stakeholders. International Children's Day, very important for us on our annual calendars. Universal Children's Day, there's some amazing organizations very much affiliated to the United Nations who run programs around emotional intelligence, specifically on this day in November. I really would encourage you, if you are interested in those spaces, to have a little bit more of a look and find out a bit more of what's already in existence and how you can apply that into your organization. And then certainly most important is something that many of us as NPOs are very much reliant on, is our volunteers. We cannot do the work that we do without people coming on board to share their time, to share their skills. So this is part of creating awareness around what we do, is celebrating our volunteers through International Volunteer Day, which happens every year in December. And that's it from my side. I'm not too sure if there's an opportunity for anyone who might have a question or maybe something they wanted to engage on. There was two areas I just wanted to highlight also coming out of the some of the talks that we've spoken on earlier, and that is really the impact of volunteers and how they make a difference for organizations such as ourselves. Really looking at how they can add value to the work that's being done by civil society. We are not able to pay salaries. We are not able to sometimes even cover basic stipends. We try our best to do transport costs, but we really would like to encourage volunteerism as a spirit of what we refer to as Ubuntu in South Africa, where the village raises the child, where it takes every single person getting involved to make a difference in the life of a child. And then around some of our challenges around what we do, certainly funding is always an issue. Every single organization has dealt with that, in particular over the last 2 years. So we just want to highlight and do a call out to anyone out there who might be able to assist by ensuring that we're able to continue doing what we do in the toy libraries around South Africa. There are multiple opportunities to get involved and really just to engage and let's say put your purse where your mind is or where your mouth is. And then last of all, to say thank you to the Youth United Council of India for this incredible summit that you guys have pulled together today. I'm looking forward to listening to some of your other speakers over the coming time today as well as tomorrow, and really just to thank you for the opportunity to showcase what we do, to highlight the importance of play, and really just to encourage everyone to keep your inner child alive. That's the fun part about what we do, is that we get to keep our inner child alive and engage with our inner child while we are playing with children. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really wonderful what you're doing. Toy librarian, that is really interesting. And we will look into the organizations that you mentioned in your presentation. Thank you so much. Now, moving on to our next speaker, it is Kazimulo Zita. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrongly, but her job title is Head of School Achievement, and she's working in the organization Spark Schools of South Africa. About her is she's a teacher at heart with a strong sense of public duty that helps affect positive change in societies. She's also passionate about student experiences in learning spaces and believes that education is the only vehicle that will change their attitudes towards all challenges the world faces toward today and ultimately solve them. In her current role, she leads and coaches school achievement managers in running high academic achieving schools together with positive experiences for their stakeholders. So in her spare time, she enjoys spending time with her small family, for family, Benji, and she's also active mentor for young and upcoming education professionals through the Mentorship Challenge program. And we are glad to have you, ma'am, and I'm handing it over to you.
Thank you very much, Misula. I hope I'm saying your name right. Good morning and good afternoon, Sanbonani. I am from South Africa. With regards to some of the things that you are invested. Am I breaking?
Yes, ma'am. I guess there's some network issue, so your voice is breaking.
Okay. Is it better now?
No, ma'am.
Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. I'm sorry about this technical glitch. Maybe I just need to move spaces and see if my connectivity will be better. Please give me one moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Is it better?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I
thank you
can
very
hear
much.
you as
Sorry
well.
about that. Okay. So I was saying thank you very much for the invitation and to be part of this Children's Summit and just to hear from everyone how we are all invested in ensuring that our children who are our future are actually really taken care of. Right, so I'm going to get straight into it. I'm going to read through my presentation and I will hopefully share it with the organizers at the end of this. So I think I'm just going to get straight into it by first acknowledging that we all understand that children's issues are really, really broad, and yet they remain an intimate subject in that they revolve around the future of our next generations and the fact that they are also embedded in the fact that each little human being whom we call children is dependent on us in order for us to set them up for the bright futures that they deserve. And for me and the organization that I work for, this is a call for all of us to invest in the future of the world through our children and with them. I think Mrs. Gavender and Mr. Holt and the previous speaker have set really the scene in terms of how the issues around the safety of children in South Africa in particular exhibit themselves. However, we all know that these children issues are a global issue, and they continue also to vary from continent to continent, country to country, and sometimes even within communities. And in South Africa in particular, and other developing countries, we know that children's safety issues are compounded by poverty and the ever-increasing unemployment of young people. And at present, the COVID-19 pandemic has also thrown a spanner in the works, and that exacerbates the challenges and some of the issues that our children are going through. And today, I would really like to draw our attention to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are at a point where we're all starting to lift our heads out of the pandemic. However, I am calling for all of us to stop and have a moment of reflection in terms of what may have, happened during this midst of this pandemic to our children and their needs. In a country like South Africa, we know that we had very long and extended periods of lockdown, and that presented some opportunities for our kids to be exposed to increased threat towards their physiological, emotional, and their digital safety. And we know that a lot of children during the pandemic lost that predictability, lost that control over their activities that they had, and ultimately lost control of their lives. A lot of children missed out on the connectedness through their friendships with their peers, and sometimes connectedness with their own family members, as every individual was trying to really stay afloat and make ends meet. We know that we had families or parents taking up more than one job just to try and make ends meet, meaning that that time with their children is limited or sometimes is non-existent. So before I get to some of the activities or interventions that we've engaged in the group of schools that I work with, I would like to draw our attention to really what are children's needs. And I think hearing from Mrs. Govender, Mr. Holt and Debbie, I was really intrigued that there are multiple dimensions of our understanding of the children's needs. So I'm not going to go back and really chat about what is in our South African Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all the pieces of legislation that are in place that compel us to put children's interests as of paramount importance in everything that we do. However, I would like to reflect on, a model that I often reflect on whenever I am dealing with children, which is Maslow's 1943 model of the hierarchy of needs. And I would like to hone onto the two needs, namely safety needs, love, and belonging. And like I said previously, that these two needs for me really came out strongly in the midst of the pandemic. And I think it goes without saying that these two needs are primarily fulfilled by family and the society. And however, I ask of these questions: who is this family and who is the society? And I think, like I said, a number of speakers have touched on a number of organs and organizations that are responsible for the care of children. And personally, having been in education for 40 years, I am 40 years old. And I am saying this because I've spent the 23 years, obviously, as a student or a learner, and then the 17 years working in the education sector. I do believe that our schools and the family are the society, our schools, the family, and the communities are the societies that are responsible for ensuring and safeguarding these children's needs. So for me, schools are not just learning and teaching institutions, particularly in these times when the world is faced with so much instability. I believe that schools are increasingly playing a pivotal role in fulfilling the safety needs for the millions of children across the world. And therefore, schools, together with any other organizations that are really committed to ensuring that we build this future that we want for our children and also for the world. I believe that schools really should be taking the lead, as our children spend a lot of their time in schools. And today, I just want to briefly touch on also an issue that I feel was actually already in existence, which is digital safety. So without really taking anything away from the children's issues that exist in the world, and without really taking away from the fact that children issues are actually cyclical in nature, none takes the precedence over the other. However, today I do believe that the issue of digital safety continues to raise its ugly head in parallel with the increased digital uptake of technology across the world. And I do believe also that as much as technology is helping us in really solving a lot of the world problems that we have, it is also helping us in customizing every child's academic experience in schools. At the same time, we need to be keeping a very close watch in terms of what is happening in the online or digital spaces. And we all know that with or without the COVID-19 pandemic, the world had already invested in infrastructure and young people to take the lead in using technology to solve some of our world challenges. However, I do believe that the pandemic compelled, particularly schools, to adopt a number of e-learning programs full-time in some instances, as we all scrambled to keep learning going and also mitigate what the World Bank terms learning poverty, mitigate against what the World Bank terms learning poverty. So basically, I think for me, we've seen, especially I'll speak also, you know, based on or informed by my experiences in South Africa, in Gauteng, that a number of children are spending or have been spending a lot of time online, both for learning and sometimes for recreational purposes. But what stood out strongly was that also a lot of the children were spending time to fulfill the need of safety, love, and belonging. And now, as many of the speakers have touched on the responsibility of parents, the responsibility of schools in safeguarding the use of digital tools in an online or in a digital space. So for me now, I pose also the questions, the following questions, which are, what roles do schools play in safeguarding the safety of our children online? And also, what is the scope of parental responsibility in ensuring that our kids are safe in these digital spaces? And lastly, what is the role of other citizens within the countries to ensure that our kids remain safe whilst in those digital spaces? I do not have any or all of the answers. And however, what I know is that the responsibility lies within all of us to actually ensure that our children are really safe in those spaces. So we all know that pieces of legislation on child safety are in place in every country. And we are the vessels to bring those pieces of legislation we choose. And I believe that as schools, our fidelity to child safety should be deeply embedded in our models and in our curriculum that we bring in to be taking care of of our children. So I would just like to share, some of the things that we do with the group of schools that I work with. So we are a group of 19 primary schools across the country with 18 schools in Gauteng and then 1 primary school in the Western Cape. So our model is really a model that is aimed at customizing every child's learning experience. And as the host said, that it is a huge interest of mine to actually follow children's experiences in schools. How do they experience the school? How do they experience their peers? And how also involved are the parents in that academic journey? We rely a lot on these children to bring their parents along also into their academic journeys. So obviously I know that Mrs. Scavender touched quite a lot in terms of parental responsibility and also a number of responsibility that lie within the teachers or the staff, anyone who finds themselves working with children within a schooling environment. So here at Spark Schools, our social and emotional learning curriculum is really fully fleshed, and we are quite intentional in terms of how we live and model our core values that we live by. So I would like for you to take some time, maybe if you do have time, have a look and see that the acronym actually SPARK stands for some of our core values that are actually the beacon into how we engage or do things within our schools. But one of the biggest, one of the core values that I wanted to really briefly touch on is the core value of responsibility. So it is important for us as that particular group of schools to ensure that our children are active citizens, not only in the classrooms, but in their communities and the country at large. Therefore, they are called to put in some time and effort to serve others and to tackle whatever challenges we may face as a team for the good of the country. So you will hear a lot and see a lot of, I am responsible for this, or we are responsible for this. So we do believe that children, like I said in the beginning, are really, the individuals that should be participating in their future, and they should be heard, and they should also, be involved in not just projects that are about themselves, but also projects that are about other people. So like Debbie mentioned, there are a number of, celebrations, opportunities for children to get involved in some of these, some of those projects that show actually responsibility and commitment to tackling, some of the challenges that the world faces in this 21st century. So you'll find our children quite involved in, anti-bullying campaigns, your drives for, community and some community outreach programs. So that is basically how we try and, incorporate a sense of responsibility in our children. And then also just looking at digital safety as a topic that I really chose to briefly touch on. We do believe that through our model, we are giving our children, so our model basically is the blended learning model. We are giving our children, or previously disadvantaged children, the opportunity to engage with technology at a very young age. And in that, we believe that they will actually become sensitized around, yes, the benefits of using technology, but at the same time, some dangers that may be lurking whilst one is in the digital space. And then lastly, there is also some of the engagements that we invest in, which revolve around parental responsibility. And I think being a parent myself, I've got a 13-year-old, I think I have a fair share of my own experiences of how tough parenting can be. And I do believe that actually parenting in the 21st century is actually no small feat. But with that said, it does not take away the responsibility that we have as parents in safeguarding our kids. And in our schools, we believe that active parent engagement, which means I am a contributor to my child's academic journey, not just for the academic results, but for their well-being and discipline too. So we do work with a number of families who are also in need of parenting enhancement, opportunities and platforms. So we do partner with a number of NGOs, and a number of organizations like your Safe Schools, your Care Junction, to support parents and teachers with ways in which we can prevent and identify in real time some of the issues that our children may be facing. And therefore, we are in a better space to be able to protect our children for any threats that may be lurking, whether it's in the digital space or in other spaces where our children find themselves in. And I think I'd just like also to, wrap up by just highlighting that I think as a world, we do need to continue to live by the fact that, I know it is an African proverb, that it takes a village to raise a child. However, I do believe that this is just not an African proverb. It should be a worldwide proverb where we all live by it. And I thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really good. And now moving forward to the next speaker, she's Valencia Clark. She's a co-founder of Mount Olive Research. She's a trained counselor, advocate for those infected and affected by HIV and the safety of children in townships, member of DACC, that is District Action Committee for Children, and founder of Girls Leadership Program. Now, she has been nominated for Gauteng Premier Service Excellence Awards, NPO of the Year 2019. Over 19 years of experience in the NPO sector, and she's also a trained and a church elder. We are glad to have you here, ma'am, with so much of experience and such a good outreach program that is Mount Olive, and we are looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you so much. And like all the other speakers, I'm absolutely honored to be part of the summit and of such a life-changing event. I want to say thank you for putting this together. I think during COVID-19 and all the other things, these are the kind of things that we really missed out on, to be able to hear other speakers and learn from each other and get the knowledge and the experience that others have that we can also use and implement within our areas and our districts. So I really want to say thank you. I hear from all the speakers and I acknowledge all of them, and the different legislations and the different programs that are happening. And one of the things that is close to my heart and that is really niggling at me at the moment is child safety in the townships, and in particularly child safety against culture. I know the first speaker has also mentioned a lot of the dangers that the girls in the townships are facing, including the blessy system or the sugar daddy system that our speaker was referring to. And one of the things that I really, I would almost say like a illness within our society is the fact that our children are being trained and also being cultivated, that culture dictates to them that a child must be seen and not be heard. I think my challenge this morning to civil society, to those in powers and those that are able to do anything, is to be able to bring a child's voice back into reality again. Culture has taught our children to respect their elders, not to question what has been taught to them, to not speak about the problems or abuse that they experience in the home and in their premises. Do not go against your elders, etc. And what this brings to the children that are currently abused or that are experiencing abuse is that they often have to live within the premises or the supposed safety, but the perpetrator that are actually abusing them is the person that they have to look up to, the person that they have to be with, the person that is their provider. I think the first speaker also mentioned a few cases that she had to deal with. So my plea this morning to us is, I'm not saying culture is bad, because we often say that culture brings values. Culture is good. Culture brings stability within a family, within a society, within a community. But my appeal perhaps this morning is that we as civil society should look into programs, into small groups that we are able to do to create a safe space for culture to operate within, where a child can have his voice. I think the previous speaker that has just finished now also said that it's important for our children to have these voices. I remember a few years ago when the government was driving the children's forum, they used to actually say nothing for a child without a child. And unfortunately, within the community that I'm working, and I can only speak for where I'm working at, that has almost faded away. I often find that there are rules and regulations and policies and legislations that are being set, but children are not seen within the sectors. They are not seen as their voices are not being heard. And again, I'm only speaking within the area that I'm working at. And that's what I'd like to see coming back. I'd like to see that and challenge civil society to help the children to find their voices, to help our children to come back and be childlike again. During the HIV pandemic, we found a lot of our children had to take the role of adulthood, where the parent had passed away. Often the children were left to see to themselves. At the time, we had a lot of child-headed households. We had a lot of youth-headed households. And what that created was that we left all the responsibilities over to the teenagers or to the children. And how can a child raise a child? At the time, it was left and it was said that if we leave the children within their own environment, it is the safest space. Well, it might have been the safest space at the time, but a lot has changed since then. And what had come out of that is that a lot of the young people could not cater for their siblings and their children, and they had to find ways to make money or to find sustainability for their siblings, and they reverted to the blessing system or the sugar daddy system, and many different other ways as well that we see in the communities and especially in the townships. So my challenge again is that we as civil society needs to go back and maybe look at collaborating some programs together and share information. I hear the speakers talking about Ubuntu, and it takes a village to raise a child, etc. And that's definitely the ideal, and it's definitely what we have set out to do. And if we look at 7 generations ago or 5 generations ago, that definitely was the case, where villagers would get up, and I know even when I was raised up, I would have my neighbors would definitely have the right to discipline me. However, that has changed, because if a neighbor now has to raise a hand against me, everyone will come in and step in as it's child abuse, etc., etc. And in some incidences, it would be. But we have to then also take the good with the bad, because if the neighbor is too afraid to step up and being able to discipline me when I'm wrong, then it's also too afraid to step up and speak when they see that the child is being abused. So I'm saying, and I'm asking, and I'm thinking that the summit is available, because I can certainly see a platform such as this being used to collaborate and to put together a platform for us to come together and share information and come back to Ubuntu, because Ubuntu is not happening at the moment in our area, I would say. Especially after COVID, you see more and more people living within their own spaces, just trying to survive and trying to get themselves onto another level. So what is that created? It broke down the trust and the community Ubuntu-ness, and it has placed almost the responsibility solely on the individual itself, including the child, where the child has to also try and to survive within this world that is suddenly changing, suddenly being very different, suddenly not being very playful. I love the idea of the speaker about being careful to the earth and being responsible to the earth. Then we have the play library. Those are all beautiful ideas for a child to sort of develop and become playful again. And that's the kind of beauty that I would like to see, especially within the different townships. I also often find that what I see within the townships is not what I would see in a suburb. I would see a garden being done in a suburb, but yet the township that has the space and the need for a garden is often not really happening there. So I find that, in my opinion, is that the have and the have not is becoming broader. The space is becoming just so wide that I often find that to be able to bring that beauty into the township child is becoming more and more difficult, but it's not unachievable. And I believe that if I have to try and do it on my own, I'm definitely going to fail. But if I have to try it with all my learned friends on this platform and beyond, because there are some places that you might be connected that you can share even more information or more development strategies or more programs. That's my dream, is that more collaboration will happen and it will come in. The statistics that our first speaker has shared with us was mind-blowing for me, because we are all working in the industry where we are doing programs, where we are sharing programs with the young people. And to be faced with 13,000 abortions is not healthy. So I'm just asking and challenging that share information with each other, share programs with one another, and collaborate so that we can fight this devilish demon of destroying our children, and not just our girl child, but the boy child as much as the girl child. So yes, that's my plea this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was very wonderful. Thank you for being part of our speech summit today. Now, we are at the end of our summit of day one. We hope the same crowd to be presented tomorrow as well. And we loved today's speakers and the knowledge they shared. It was incredible. And every speaker was very, very inspiring. And we hope to bring some kind of change in the society towards the safety of every child in the whole wide world. And thank you for everybody for participating today, and have a great day.
Thank you, Mridula, for
Goodbye.
hosting. And thank you to all the speakers.